report comes to you from rainy Tennessee. Wishing you all a Merry Christmas. I decided to report on hepatitis C. There's been a lot of changes in the last year in these therapies. So 60% of infections come from injection drug use, but you can see the yellow box there, the other category. That's where healthcare related falls in, which is relevant to us. You can see 2 to 3% of the world has hepatitis C. Most prevalent is in Egypt, where almost 10% are infected. Most people who get infected are asymptomatic. Only 20% with an acute infection will be symptomatic. Of the group that got infected, 20% of those will develop an antibody against it and clear the virus, where 80% will progress to chronic infection. So that leaves a situation where many people progress to being chronically infected without ever having any symptoms or warning that they're infected. 25% of chronic infections will become cirrhotic after 25 years. Once cirrhotic, hepatitis will progress to hepatocellular carcinoma in 1 to 3% per year. And it's also worth noting that a person is more likely to die from liver failure than hepatocellular carcinoma, though they're both significant contributors to morbidity of the disease. So by decade, my red is the 1980s. The 1980s, hepatitis C had not been identified. It wasn't identified until 1989. Acyclovir didn't work. In the 80s, we're just throwing things that we know have killed viruses before at this unknown virus. Interferon started to work in trials before we even had identified hepatitis C virus. In the 1990s, mainly they focused on trying to dial in the interferon treatment. In 1998, ribavirin was added to the mix, and that had achieved a cure rate. SVR, and you'll hear me explain it in a minute, but SVR basically is our cure rate. It's sustained virologic response. 34% of patients in 1998 could be cured with that combination of interferon and ribavirin. In the 2000 decade, pegylation of interferon lengthened its half-life and caused improved results. And then in the mid-2000 decade, protease inhibitors came out. This is a new class. It's a change in pace for the whole race to fight hepatitis C, because these are direct-acting agents based on specific things we know about the virus. Kind of taking the cue from HIV pharmacology. We can learn a lot about viruses and make specific drugs against them. So that started happening for hepatitis C in 2006. In 2012, this was the standard of care. One protease inhibitor, the direct-acting agent, and then interferon alpha and ribavirin. The best efficacy we ever got with that is about 75% cure rate. 2013, a new direct-acting agent, sofosbuvir, this is just over a year ago, received FDA approval. And then last week, the first major competitor of sofosbuvir has received FDA approval, and it's by a company called AbbVie. They call it 3D because it's got 3 different drugs in it. So you can see across time, first interferon, then interferon and ribavirin. I'm looking at the top left image, and then pegylated interferon, and then at the far right, they've added protease inhibitors and gotten to about a 75% sustained virologic response. The definition, and then we can look at the bottom right now, of sustained virologic response is after treatment and achieving a viral load of 0 with treatment, 6 months must pass and there must still be a viral load of 0 or undetectable. So unfortunately there's still some residual liver damage, so we do see, even in sustained virologic response, some morbidity from liver disease, but the graph on the bottom right shows in light blue, if you've had sustained virologic response, dark blue, if you've had sustained virologic response, very low incidence of these liver-related problems, and whereas without sustained virologic response, it's quite high. So this is just a summary of the decades. We kind of went through this, but anyway, in gold is where we're at right now. We're improving the direct acting agents and trying to drive the costs down at this point, and you'll see why we need to do that. Why was there a need for improvement? Well, at best we were, with the interferon alpha and ribavirin, we were looking at 50% at best sustained biologic response, and this is just a table tracking side effects. They're really high. Let's just say that. Nausea, fatigue, headache, myalgias. People didn't like being on them. Here's a review of studies, randomized clinical trials tracking the side effects of pegylated interferon. Roughly 40% had to have a dose modification. Almost 20% had to discontinue therapy, and that's all in the context of 35 to 50% sustained viral response at best. Okay, so a little bit about the life cycle, and then we can briefly kind of grasp the mechanisms of the new drugs. Hepatitis C enters and uncoats itself. It's a positive RNA strand at that point, and it utilizes host cell ribosomes to make a long polypeptide. That polypeptide has to be cleaved into the individual proteins, and that's an important place where we're introducing pharmacology at that cleavage point. Once it's cleaved, at the top right, you can see those are 10 proteins which the polypeptide is cleaved into. So these proteins are the ones that actually go into viral replication itself. There's polymerase. That's an important one because we can block it. And there's helicases. And there's other proteins that are less well described, including NS5A, which is a transcriptional activator, not otherwise specified. We're not exactly sure what it does, but we have a drug against it. So once over on that side, these proteins have produced viral genomes, they package them up and send them off. So that's kind of the basic life cycle. And you can see here, any drug that ends in Previr, that drug is a protease inhibitor. So it stops you see on the top right, all those 10 proteins, they never would have gotten to exist. Well, at least, yeah, they would have been disabled from chopping up into their individual pieces and remained a long amino acid to gunk things up. Any drug that ends in Buvir is a polymerase inhibitor, so that's one of the 10 proteins that the protease has cleaved. We have a UDP nucleotide in the Buvir drugs that can get itself incorporated and then cause the strand to stop forming. And then the NS5A, this is the non-specified activator of transcription protein, and we have drugs that end in Asvir that can inhibit that protein. So Gilead Sofosbuvir hit the market a year ago when it was FDA approved. Initially used still in combination with interferon alpha and ribavirin. The combination had a 90% cure rate, and that's at $1,000 per pill for 12 weeks for a total of $84,000. You can see Gilead did pretty well in the past year, charging $84,000 per patient. They've done all right. Congress, especially Democratic members of Congress, wondered how can they charge so much? Is that right? The CEO was asked to appear before Congress and defend the pricing of his drug. So basically, he pointed out the side effects. He pointed out the alternatives. Terrible side effects with previous regimens, which are also less effective. Liver transplant costs about $500,000, and he's saving people's lives. So they kept the price at what it is for now. You can see here the stock price falling as Gilead is being questioned by Congress and insurers begin to launch an outcry in April. However, the stock rose again, as you can see. So there's a combination pill. It's called Harvoni now. 2 months ago, it was FDA approved, and it's a combination of sofosbuvir and ledipasvir. This has got a 94 to 99% cure rate. It's also going to be a little bit cheaper not per pill, but because it's been proven to be effective with a shorter course. Part of proving that to be effective in a shorter course was enrolling patients in clinical trials. My dad's a pathologist. He unfortunately was infected by hepatitis C at some point during his career. He's not sure when. And he was part of this clinical trial. He's been virus free for almost a year now, so we're very pleased. When Harvoni received FDA approval, so Harvoni is basically what my dad took, but before it was FDA approved because he was part of this trial. He got it for free. You can see that was back in October. There was another uptick, pretty significant uptick of more than $10 in the stock price, more than 10%. But now, this is just from last week. AbbVie has fortunately, brought competition to the market. So there's 3 drugs in one pill. It was called AbbVie 3D. Now they're calling it Vicarapac. It's priced similarly, just under $84,000 for a 12-week regimen. But they made a deal with Express Scripts, who holds a lot of weight in the pharmacology benefit market. And so people willing to do business through Express Scripts will be able to get the drug for roughly $50,000. So you can see all 3 of the direct-acting agent mechanisms are utilized. This is a 3-drug combo in Vicarapac by AbbVie. That's what happened to Gilead's stock price Monday and Tuesday this week since AbbVie came out and there's a competitor on the market. So Gilead's going to be under pressure to lower their prices. Stock fell 20% in the last 2 days. So unfortunately, the demographic in hepatitis C patients is largely poor. Most people can't afford the drug prices, obviously. There's patient assistance programs in place. Interestingly, licenses for generic production are in place. You can get sofosbuvir for about $10 a pill in Egypt. So that's just amazing if you consider how much they're making in profit margin here, if it's possible to produce it for $10 a pill. And they're selling it for $1,000 a pill here. But good, luckily, new competition entering the market. Economics of HIV therapy may be predictive of how well we're able to spread hepatitis drugs to the world. You can see globally we've got about 2/3 of the people who ought to be on antiretroviral therapy on it. So it's not great, but it's a big improvement. And overall, the hepatitis C population is somewhat less poor than the HIV population. So there's hope that a lot of people will find a lot of relief. And we're already seeing that in the U.S. Thank you guys for listening.